This is 20 Minutes Live. Welcome to all of you from India and around the world. I've caught Papa CJ sneaking a snack, but that's what life is of a stand-up comedian. I am truly delighted to have Papa CJ today. He barely requires introduction, but let me go through some of his facets of his profile. It's very, very interesting. He's a world renowned stand up comedian and has won awards as both Asia's and India's best stand up comedian. He has performed over 2,000 shows in 25 countries and has had numerous appearances in NBC, BBC, Comedy Central, and a host of international networks. Forbes magazine called him the global face of Indian stand up, and Harvard Business Review called him one of the most influential comedians around the world. He's represented India at various festivals and has had standing ovations on Broadway in New York and other theaters in the world. He was instrumental in starting off the English language stand up comedy industry in India after he returned to the country in 2008. Most interestingly, CJ holds an MBA from University of Oxford and is often engaged as a motivational speaker. I am truly delighted to welcome the award winning international stand up comedian Papa CJ. Welcome to this show, Papa CJ.
Thank you, Ninad, for that embarrassingly long introduction.
It was just a short version of the very long profile I have of yours, but yes,
No, no.
you have done such amazing stuff.
In our business, we have a saying that it doesn't matter what you've done before. If you don't impress them on the night, it doesn't. Whatever introduction you may have makes no difference. So don't
No,
even bother with the introduction.
well, no pressure on you, CJ, today. Next 20
Thanks.
minutes, 25 minutes. So, viewers, you're familiar with our format. I will first start talking to CJ. If you don't mind, I'll call you CJ instead of
Please.
entire Papa CJ. For around probably 5 to 10 minutes, I want to chat with him. I want to grab this opportunity. But interestingly, viewers, you have the best chance to ask questions. Ask whatever you like, and he will respond to it after I have chatted with him or in between as well. So let's start with my first question, CJ. You entered India when stand up comedy was not so popular. Did you have apprehensions about getting into this very new area?
I didn't really, Ninad, because firstly, before moving to India, I had already done 700 shows in the UK.
Oh, wow.
And I remember as a child, my father used to tell me this story, which is always in my mind, about this shoe salesman who was sent to the Andaman and Nicobar Islands, many
Right.
years ago. So Bata company sent this fellow. In those days, you went by ship. So he gets there and he finds that there's nobody wearing any shoes. So he goes straight to the post office. And in those days, you send those telegrams with that code. So he sends a message to his boss saying, listen, nobody wears shoes here. So I'm taking the next ship and I'm coming back. So a few years pass and another shoe salesman is hired in this company. Again, there's a marketing manager who gets the same idea. So he says, go to the Andaman and Nicobar Islands and, see if there's a market for our shoes. So this fellow reaches there by ship. It takes 3 weeks. And he gets there and he finds that nobody's wearing any shoes. He goes running to the post office, sends a telegram to his boss saying, listen, the market is wide open. Nobody here has any shoes. Send me all the stock that you've got. So for me,
Great.
that's how I think it was all about attitude. That's how I felt coming into India, saying it's fabulous, we have an opportunity here to create something. So let's do it. But I will say this, it was slightly challenging in the start because,
Sure.
I would meet an aunt and she would say, beta tum kya karte ho? Son, what do you do? So I said,
Correct.
Auntie, I'm a comedian. I tell jokes. And she would say, Beta, even I tell jokes. What do you do for a living? you know?
What do you do for a living? So, talking about living, you do a lot of shows, and it's interesting, to try and find behind what you do. Do you think comedians like you, stand up, should shape public opinions or do a commentary on it? What is your view?
So I don't buy into the word should. I
Okay,
think to each their own. People
right,
perform based on their value systems. can comedians shape public opinion? Of course they can. They say humor is like a rubber sword. You can make a
Right.
point without drawing any blood.
Right.
But as Shakespeare said, all the world's a stage and each of us must play a part. So my part is to entertain. I don't really want to be seen as the voice of the youth or a social commentator or somebody having this huge public opinion. I want to make people laugh. I want to make people happy. And the way I do it is I try and have my impact on the ground
Sure.
with some of the stuff that I do with my happiness project and things like that.
Well, questions are popping up already on my screen. So I'm going to start taking some of them because I won't be able to.
Sure.
So Rabindra Jhunjhunwala, he's also from your same city where you grew up. He's asking, why Papa CJ? What's the story?
My friend, when you read my book, you will find out. It's the
Read
most
his book.
commonly asked question.
Read his book. I have read his book. It's fascinating, and I'll talk more about it later. But it's really a nice book. I have finished
But
reading it. Loved it.
I'll answer that question for him. I started doing my comedy in the UK. I was the only Indian comedian in the entire country.
Right.
And I've been called CJ since I was a kid. It's the initials for my name. And all the content I would do, I would always try and present India in a very positive light. One of the first few lines I came up with, which has become my tagline, I suppose, is that I come from the land of the Kama Sutra. I can screw you in more ways than you can count.
Right.
So when I made up the stage name Papa CJ, I think subconsciously I was thinking कि अंग्रेजों को भी लगना चाहिए उनका कोई बाप है. I used to get a little kick in my own head. All these guys are calling me Papa and all.
So you've done thousands and thousands of shows. I'm sure there will be two which you'll remember, which is one which is a high point and one which is your most embarrassing moment in the shows.
Okay, so let me answer both of them. As far as embarrassing moments are concerned, Ninad, I have been a stand-up comedian for 15 years. We have no self-respect. For you to be embarrassed, you actually need to have some shame. So we are no longer embarrassed at all. As far as highs are concerned, I've done shows in fancy places. So I've done shows on Broadway. I've done a sold-out Sydney Opera House. But I think the shows that mean a lot to me are the shows that I do with my happiness project.
Correct.
When
Can you
when
tell
I
us
go
more
into
about that? Yeah. Can you talk about happiness project?
It's something I started a few years ago. I believe that celebrity is a currency,
Right.
and what matters is how you choose to spend it. I mean, as a kid, I've never liked the word because I grew up in a middle class family, and the word celebrity I associated with, all these page 3 parties and all of that stuff, which is not me. So every now and then I do different things. I'll do a fundraising tour and raise 40 plus lakhs for 10 charities in 2 weeks. I go into hospitals. I work with cancer patients. I go to old age homes and just do laughter yoga and make them dance and things like that. So for me, those are the more meaningful shows. I've had cancer patients come to me after a show and saying, we haven't laughed like this for years.
Right.
I did something last year or year before last, I can't even remember, where I put an open offer saying, if you've got somebody in your house who's been unwell for a long time, I will come to your home and perform just for you and your family,
Oh.
So I would have 6 people. I've been to a hospital room and had 2 people. And I've seen the family members of that patient in tears because they have not seen their loved one laugh like that for years, So for me, those are the shows, if you call them, that are most meaningful to me. Those are my high points.
Wow, great. No, that's great work you're doing. One question has popped up from a viewer, and viewer, please keep asking questions, is why use irreverent language?
I don't think you need to use irreverent language,
Okay.
And, you see, this is also something that's happening in India right now, which is there a lot. How
Right.
clean do I need to keep my language here, Ninad? Do I need to be clean here?
Semi-clean
Just
is
check.
what I would say.
Semi-clean? Okay. So what happens is, initially, if you're a 22-year-old who's just starting doing comedy, there is a shock value to it, and
Right.
because stand-up is new in the country, they get on stage and they use one gully and people are like, oh my God, half the thing is like, I can't believe he said that, in this environment. But after the first 3 or 4 times, we're like, okay, dude, we've got that, right? Now, where's the joke? So
Correct.
beyond a certain point, it doesn't work. Now, all over the world, what happens is not only do comedians evolve, but audiences evolve. And when
Right.
audiences evolve, they demand better of the comedian.
Right.
In our country, the country is so large that the second an audience evolves, another audience comes and takes their place. So
Right.
there isn't that external pressure for that comedian to go up a level. Also,
Right.
people keep saying, oh, you comedians are vulgar,
Right.
right? Why does a comedian crack a joke? Because he wants people to laugh.
Yeah.
There's nothing worse than trying to make people laugh and getting silence. So if you stop laughing, comedians will stop cracking those jokes. So
Sure.
my argument is that it is the audience that is vulgar. You are vulgar.
It is the audience that is vulgar. So there's a serious question here by Narayan Pasar. He's asking, does happiness, kindness, and laughter go hand in hand?
Uh, they're all associated. I mean, slightly
Right.
different things, but also the same. I think
Right.
laughter leads to happiness, happiness leads to laughter. It's all kind of linked in. It's a very vague question which you can ramble on forever. So,
Sure, sure. So I'm going to take you on a different path, and I'm going to ask you one or two different kind of questions. We
sure.
are just 10 weeks away from the U.S. Presidential election. Let's assume that on the election, when the results are declared, the two people who are running for president, the incumbent and uh, Joe Biden, they are both equal. Votes are exactly equal to the last number one. And they decide what to do. Let's have a wild card entry. Let's call Papa CJ as the president of USA. What will you do first thing when you sit on that chair as the president of USA?
Well, for starters, I will resign immediately. I do not want that job. Who wants so much responsibility and pressure? Yeah, I'm a comedian. I slept at 6:30 this morning. I woke up at 12. I'm sitting here in my pajamas chatting with you. Right. I mean, that's a different fact that Donald Trump probably does exactly the same thing. But I would resign. I don't want that job. Yeah. I
Okay, you
chose
would
this
resign.
life.
But I must tell you another comedian, and he's the president of Ukraine. I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name right. Volodymyr Zelensky. He was a
Uh-huh.
comedian. He got
Yeah.
73% vote, and now he's president of Ukraine.
Yeah.
So comedians do have life beyond comedy. And assume 2030 United Nations is filled with all nations are represented by comedians. Wouldn't the world be a nicer place? No conflicts, people will have a laugh. What do you think?
Not a chance in hell. We would be having a world war because com- comedians, by nature of what they do, are generally quite opinionated people, and they do not feel the need to fit in or get along. So rest assured, there will be a world war taking place.
So there is Yasmin who's from Singapore, and she's saying, she heard your show in Singapore, and Singapore audience is a little different probably from the Indian audience. Uh, so is it okay to use the kind of language that you use, or is there something different which needs to be done in Singapore as opposed to India?
So here's the thing. This is my analysis. The US, by and large, is what I call the McDonald's of comedy. It's very
Right.
much here's a joke, here's a joke, here's a joke, here's a joke. It's like fast food. In the UK, it's like fine dining. It's very much a part of their culture, live stand up. So you can tell a 3-minute story and they will wait for it if you have a decent punchline at the end. Southeast Asia has a very polite culture, right?
Right.
You have to be in their faces. So interaction works. If there's a joke that's really funny, you've got to be that's funny, clap, right? I mean, we joke about Singapore that, if there's an earthquake, what do Singaporeans do? Nothing. They wait for the government to tell them what they're supposed to do, right? I sometimes joke that, when you go there, like you open the newspaper in Singapore and nothing ever happens in Singapore. Like literally the last time I was there, the front page of the newspaper said there was a pig on the street. If there is a pig on the street in Singapore, that becomes headline news. In Germany,
Right.
it becomes a sausage, right? And of course, in America, it becomes the president of the United States of America. But India is a little different to these countries because all over the world, stand-up comedy is a very grassroots art form. anti-establishment, anti-elite. In India, English language stand-up comedy is largely performed for the elite, you know.
Right.
So by and large, your audience is, well, you could somewhat argue well-read, well-read, well-traveled, they have money in the bank. So you're almost coming at them at a slightly different angle.
So Tirth from Goa says stand-up comedy is the toughest job in the world. So you're already getting compliments. And Kiran is asking, who's your favorite stand-up comedian?
George Carlin.
Oh, Josh
George
Carlin.
Carlin did it for over 50 years. He's more philosopher than comedian, but absolute genius.
Right. So Robin, again from Calcutta, is asking, how have you people adapted to the new situation? You know, live shows are over. So how have you people adapted to it?
I have been very surprised, Ninad, because all my life I have gone around telling people that stand-up comedy is like sex. It's best enjoyed live and not in front of a screen. There's no
Right.
substitute for actually being there. So if you're watching it online, it's like surfing comedy pornography. But
Right.
to my surprise, I have loved being a porn star. You know, it works surprisingly well because, say, on a Zoom show, I have 25 people on my screen. Their audio is on, their video is on. Like a live show, I can see them, I can talk to them. When I'm picking on them, I spotlight their screen so everyone else can see them. And it actually works pretty well. So yeah, no complaints.
No
Except, of course, I
complaints.
miss the travel. I like being on an airplane. I like going to the lounge. I like having a coffee. I mean, it's
Right.
never going to be a substitute for the real thing. But under these circumstances, I think if you're healthy and you have food on your table, you can only be grateful.
So Praveen is asking, is there scope for a school for comedy, or is it already there in India?
There is scope for a school. Many times I have been asked to run courses, but it
Sure.
is just too much effort. Because if I did it, I mean, I've already got the whole course designed, but I'm the kind of person who would pay so much individual attention to somebody.
Right.
But frankly, the only way to actually get better at comedy is by doing it. Your best teacher is the audience. You've just got to keep doing it and keep doing it and keep doing it.
Right. And there are some one or two questions about roasting people. Is it correct? It might be fun, but is it correct?
They, it's a strange question. It's like asking whether something is right or wrong.
Right.
To each their own. For me, it can be entertaining to watch. I personally don't like participating in roasts. So for me, when I do a show, I'm very interactive. I pick on a lot of people. I have no problem teasing them or embarrassing them, but I never want to be hurtful. Now,
Right.
in my opinion, a lot of the content that goes in a roast is hurtful content. So
Right.
I wouldn't be comfortable doing it myself. Do I laugh watching some of them? Sure, I do.
Right. So, advice would you give to young kids who think they are funny and want to get into this profession?
Well, as long as they're prepared for a life of poverty, go for it. Yeah. You know,
Life of
it's
poverty.
the only thing I would say is, it's a long journey. It's very important to learn the trade before you learn the tricks of the trade. Nowadays it's very important to get good before you get famous. I keep saying you should grow in the dark. Today, what
Right.
happens is, you do a 5-minute set at an open mic night. It goes really well. You stick it on the internet. You get a couple of million views. Suddenly, you can sell out a 600 seater theater. Now, these 600 people walk in, and you have to entertain them for an hour. A 3-minute clip on the internet will not teach you how to hold a live audience for 1 hour.
Right.
So I would say, more than anything else, enjoy it. If you're going to leave a decently paying job and get into a creative field and be in a rat race in a creative field, then it's a silly thing to do. Do it for yourself, enjoy it. Don't care about what anybody else is doing, and carve your own path.
Great. So Deepak Gupta is asking, what are the cultural differences in various parts of India you need to be aware of? Would you crack a joke in Delhi, which is same as, let's say, down south, or would you adapt to it, or you just don't
So
care?
no, so here's how it works. There's some stuff that is universal content, right? So things like relationships, Donald Trump, etc. Now, with content, the more local it is, the funnier it is, but the less it travels. So if I'm doing a joke about Gurgaon, It may not work in Bangalore, but it'll be amazing for the guys in Gurgaon. Also, topical comedy is funnier. So 3 days ago, if I joked about the fact that Gurgaon was underwater, it would be funny. If I joke about it in 6 months, it won't be. So as a comedian, you have to decide what percentage of time you invest in specific, local and topical content. So what I do is when I go to a new country, say I go to Singapore, I learn about their history, their politics, their scandals. I pick up the newspapers of the last 10 days. My first 10 minutes is purely about them. Then I've got them. Then I take them beyond their borders. So that's how I do it.
Great. So Sonali is asking, if you're not a comedian, what would you be? What choice would you have?
I would be doing something that uplifts people, because I think of myself as being more in the happiness business than the comedy business. It gives me great joy to be able to make people laugh or uplift their spirits. Or I do motivational speaking, I do executive coaching to help people realize their dreams. So anything that would uplift people works for me.
So Kittu Malhotra stays in Pune, and he's a good friend, dear friend, and he's asked, saying, talk a little bit about your book. So I must tell the audience that I have read this book called Naked. I have really loved it. It is smooth, it is fast. I would recommend it to you. I read a lot of books, but this is certainly something I would recommend. So talk a little bit about why you wrote it, what is the inspiration. You are otherwise, you love live audience. I won't sit and wish, write so much, have spent time writing a book.
Very simple, ego trip. I mean, why do you write a book, right? Either you're doing it for the money. Now, if you're familiar with publishing, there is no money in publishing, right? For you get 10% of the proceeds. So for a 300 rupee book, you will get 30 rupees, right? So if I sell 10 books, I can buy one coffee. So it's not for the money. Either you've got a story inside you that you're dying to tell. Now, my book is based on a show which I do on stage anyway. And there, the feedback is instant. There's instant gratification. I crack a joke, somebody laughs. So I had no motivation to write it. But then it occurred to me that the medium of print gives you the luxury of giving your audience a richer experience, because you can go many layers deeper. In a comedy club, I'm obliged to give you a punchline every 15-20 seconds. Whereas a book, I don't have that pressure. So I can give you levels of detail and layers, which gives the reader a different experience. So a lot of people who've seen the show and read the book have enjoyed both and said they're different experiences. But if you read the book, it'll feel like, now that you've heard me speak, it'll feel like I'm sitting next to you and actually telling you a story, because I write pretty much exactly like I talk.
Great. So Azam Khan is asking, please show the book again and the title. It's Papa CJ. I hope you can see it. It's called Naked. Okay, Papa CJ, Naked.
Azam, don't worry. There's no naked pictures of me inside. But that cover is actually a real photograph from a show. So a photographer has taken it from behind me while I'm performing the show Naked in London.
Okay. A lot of our viewers are startup founders. Any word of advice they have a tough life, before they really hit, hopefully some of them, if not all, get some money. Any kind of word of advice, inspiration you want to give to young startup founders?
Ninad, you will be better placed to answer this, but in my experience, more than the business, investors invest in the person.
True, we do.
So you have to be a solid person who's willing to put that hard work in. The one thing I would say is, I have seen a lot of startup founders are not very good storytellers. I've been at events where they're pitching to, there are investors and VCs sitting in front, and they have 6 minutes to tell their story. And they are unable to clearly articulate their story. And as a comedian, I'm thinking, what is wrong with you? I can help you do this. Why are you not being succinct? This is the problem that exists. This is how I'm solving it. This is the size of the problem. This is who I am. That's it. What else do you want to hear?
True.
Right?
True. So one or two questions are, other than your book, which you obviously will love, is there any other book which you've really enjoyed reading?
I'll be very honest. I'm not much of a reader. I mean,
Okay.
I have written more books than I have read, and I have written one.
So Ravi Santlani, you're talking of publishers. He publishes a magazine called School News. It's on
Uh-huh.
education, and
Uh-huh.
he's saying that. And be careful. My wife is a teacher, so be politically correct. He's saying that there's a growing trend now to also use humor in the classroom. Do you
Yeah.
think that's a good trend? It should be more used. I mean,
Oh,
any thoughts
absolutely.
around that? Yeah.
Absolutely. In fact, what I will say is, if you get the time, I've written an article today, which I've posted on LinkedIn, which
Okay.
talks about the multiple different uses of humor. I mean, today we live in an age of limited attention spans, right? I run a workshop which is called A Comedian's Guide to Marketing and Content Strategy, right? Today, Facebook counts a view on a video if you watch it for 3 seconds, right? These kids today have zero attention span. How are you going to grab their attention? Humor is a wonderful way to do that. Why is
Right.
stand-up comedy so popular? Because it's able to do that. So yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
Right. Good. So, how important is political correctness in all your stand-up comedy? Do you care about it, or just you say what is funny and you don't worry about it?
So it depends entirely. If you have come for a live comedy show in a public show, you have paid a ticket to come to see me, I will do what I want. If I have come for a corporate show or a private event, then as a
Right.
professional, it is my duty to respect the boundaries and guidelines of the space that I'm in. You know,
Yeah.
but also by nature, I'm not a very abusive person. I will tease and I will embarrass, like I said. Uh, but yeah, I mean, some of the fun is to half the job of a comedian is to say the things that other people will not say. We're all thinking of, but we won't say. And as we
Right.
say, the only way to know where the line is to cross it. And the beauty is that each time you cross that line, it goes just one step further. So really, your job as a comic is to dance on that line. 2 steps forward, one step back. But there
So
is, I
Rajiv,
will say this: there is no rule. There is no rule.
no, okay, okay. Rajiv is based in Singapore. He's asking, what is your biggest source of inspiration? How do you stay updated, motivated every morning? What makes you jump out of bed every morning?
Nothing. I wake up in the afternoon. I'm a comedian. I did not choose this life, so I would wake up in the morning. I think all of our stuff comes from life experience. Everything I talk about is based on what I have seen, experienced, read. So it's not that there's a certain, you've just got to live life, and be observant and be able to pull those things in. So we look at the world, we look at exactly the same things you see, but we look at it through the lens of a comedian saying, where can I find the funny here? Like he's from Singapore. The last time I did a show in Singapore, I had a very drunken night, finished at 5:30 in the morning. Next morning, I'm catching a flight to Kuala Lumpur. So I get to the airport, and in my hangover, I lost my boarding pass. So I went to the woman at the counter. I said, I'm sorry, ma'am, I've lost my boarding pass. Can you give me a fresh one? Now this woman started shouting at me. She said, how can you be so careless? How can you lose your boarding pass? I said, excuse me. You work for Malaysian Airlines. You lost an entire plane, all right?
Did she slap you?
No, she quickly gave me a boarding pass and said, sir, thank you very much. Please proceed to the aircraft.
So Deepak is asking you, do you reuse content or use content all the time, or every show there's pressure to do something new?
So we are a bit like the pharmaceutical industry. We spend a lot of time on R&D. We create this one product and then we milk it till kingdom come. Because unlike
Right.
music, where you say, I want to hear that song, with a joke, once you've heard it, you've heard it. Also, the process of creating content is a very cumbersome and long process. If I write
Right.
10 new jokes, maybe 3 of them will work or 4. If a new comic writes them, maybe 1 will work. Now, if I do 10 minutes of new stuff and nothing works, I've lost the audience. So what I will do is I will put 1 new joke in between 2 old jokes. So if it
Right.
drops, I can pick it up immediately. So that is how we slowly create content. And we go to these small open mic nights with 10 people, 20 people, test out material. Then the stuff that works, we bring it, into the main show. So yes, of course, we reuse content. But with me, a lot of what I do at public shows is impromptu. I can go on for 45 minutes just chatting with the audience. In fact, somebody mentioned a roast. I have a video on YouTube which says Papa CG audience roast. For 37 minutes, I have told 3 jokes at the top, and the rest of it is all made up on the spot. So that's
Wow,
worth a
really?
watch. It's all interactive. Yeah.
Okay. So before we wind down, after the question, you have to, I'll give you 1 or 2 minutes to say airtime for yourself, for the audience. I have a couple of questions before. Niru Goel is asking, how much is in Pune, how much do you read about the cultural background of a place or country before you do a show?
Frankly speaking, Niru, I don't read as much as I listen. I talk to people. From the second I land in the country, I talk to the taxi driver. I ask him what's going on, what are the big issues, what are people talking about, how does he or she feel about what's going on. I will have the previous 10 days worth of newspapers, so I know what's recent and current. But I get my information from talking to people, because then you get a feel for what their opinion and angle is on them, and that allows you to create content which will be funny.
Great. So there is, again, this is not the first or second request. Can you do an impromptu for 2 minutes? I will request you to do it before I take 1 or 2 questions, and then I would request you. So Sandeep is asking you, do you have a team to prepare your content, or you're one man army?
Yes, I do have a team, and that team is me. You think as comedians we have the money to hire other people? No, I think for me also it's a very individual point of view. So I don't know if I can necessarily get somebody who will think like me.
Right.
But yeah.
So Mudit Jain is asking, have you ever been harassed by authorities for something you've said or on stage?
Oh yes, there's a wonderful story about this in my book, which you will have to read for that, where I had 3 people. I'll give you the short summary of it. I had 3 people who came to stab me after a show because they were offended by what I did. Luckily, I was able to get away from that situation. I got back to London. I had done the show in Leicester. The following week, I got a call from Leicestershire Police. They asked whether I was the guy who cracked these jokes, which they got this complaint about, because people thought it was inappropriate. I said, yes, I was that guy. And the police ended up inviting me to perform at their show for the police. So, yeah.
Okay, great. So let me ask, one last question maybe, and then your 2 minutes. And then I do have a little bit of, I especially prepared for you some rapid fire right at the end.
Sure. Sure.
They're not very difficult for you. It's now would be quite easy. So one question is relating to how can a parent realize that the kid has this talent in her or him of being a stand-up comedian? Is there
Well,
any way to figure out?
I think with any talent, the thing is to just. I don't have any experience in parenting, but I think what's important is to let children play and to let them enjoy it. I've seen a lot of comics who, when they start, many people would look at them and think, oh my God, this person has no future in this. But I have learned never underestimate people, because they will surprise you. So what is more important is to let them enjoy it and love it. If you love it, you will get good at it. If you get good at it, eventually the money will come. The challenge is lasting out that period between loving it and, so to say, the money come in. But I would say anything your kid is passionate about or enjoys, just let them do it. Even if they're not good. The good bit can come, but let them enjoy it.
Great, Papa CJ. I'm calling you CJ.
Yeah.
Here's your 2 minutes. What the audience wants. They're not just happy with me asking you questions or them asking
They,
questions. Anything you
they
want
want a
to
free show? They want
2 minutes?
free show? Shocking. Okay, so I'll do some stuff about being in different countries. Like I said, I was in Singapore, and the last show I did in Singapore was hosted by a Pakistani stand-up comedian. Good friend of mine. His name is Umar Rana. So he warmed up the audience, and then he invited me onto stage. And in that second, I realized I had been a part of history. It was the first time I had seen a Pakistani invite an Indian to occupy a piece of land that he was occupying before. And then eventually I went to America under the Trump administration, and I made the mistake of having a beard at that point. So I get to immigration, the officer looks at my passport, looks at my beard, He says, you know what? You Indians, you're a mistake. In fact, India is a mistake. I said, come on, officer. As an American, you should be grateful to us. He said, why? I said, well, because when Christopher Columbus discovered America, he was looking for India. So, to be perfectly honest, you are the bloody mistake. And actually, I went to the US. I was doing this TV show called Last Comic Standing, a massive reality show, 3,000 contestants. And what I found really amusing was how excited all the American comedians were. They were like, oh my God, 10 million people watch this program. I was like, dude, I come from India. If I open my bathroom window, 10 million people will show up live. And I'll be honest, I'm not a big fan of reality TV. I got caught into it when that Big Brother program was happening in London. I don't know if you remember, but Shilpa Shetty had gone there. There was this reality show. There was a girl called Jade Goody who was a little bit racist towards her. Now, I was living in London and people kept asking me, who is an Indian? As an Indian, what do you think? I said, boss, in India, 1 billion people know that Shilpa is going to win, which she did. Because think about it. How do you win that show? Maximum number of votes. How do you vote? You call in. Who the hell do you think is answering those phone calls? Call centers in Gurgaon. I'd like to vote for Jay, please. Shilpa, man. I think that's good enough now. You've had your 2 minutes.
Great, good. Thanks a lot, CJ. But I'm not going to let you go without asking this round of just 5, 6 rapid fire. You know
Sure.
how rapid fire works. So let's take it as it goes.
Yeah.
What do you prefer, a small, appreciative audience or a large crowd?
Definitely a small audience. In fact, I can elaborate. A large
Sure.
audience is for the ego of the performer. The magic is in a small room because it's intimate.
Okay. So do you perform for the front row VIPs or for the cheap guys, with tickets on the back rows?
Well, if you've been for a comedy show, you will know the front row is not the VIPs. I perform for
Okay.
everybody. Also, if you see my live show, you will know that nobody's ever safe. I'm the kind of guy who gets off stage, will go and sit in the back, pick on people, sit on their lap, answer their phones, put them on speakerphone, on the microphones, screw the guy who's talking at the other end of the phone and the guy whose phone it is.
So after a performance, a big party or some quiet time?
Sex with groupies. What do you think we do this for?
So
I mean,
tomorrow
it's
morning, yeah, good.
nothing.
If you have a choice tomorrow of being appointed the global CEO of IBM, global
Yeah.
CEO, not India, or I'm from Bombay, so I have taken Bombay, or performing before a packed audience at the Royal Opera House. It's a historical theater in Bombay. What do you prefer?
It's not even a question. I mean, frankly speaking, when you started asking the question, the second you said global CEO of IBM, I would say, no, whatever the second choice is, I'll take that.
But yeah, Opera House is a great theater. We all love it in Bombay.
Yeah.
So, which city, Bombay or Delhi?
Calcutta.
Calcutta. I didn't give you an option. but
You want people like me to follow the rules?
so next life, what would you like to become? Papa CJ again or Mark Zuckerberg with billions of dollars?
Oh, definitely Papa CJ again.
Definitely Papa CJ.
I'm
And
blessed to. The greatest blessing in my life is the family and friends and the love that I get from people. It's a known quantity. I would much rather come back to this.
okay. And the last one, you've done great. The last one in rapid fire. Saturday night dinner, if you have a chance to meet one of these two people, whom would you meet? Elon Musk or Lady Gaga?
Oh, I'm not madly interested in either of them, but I would meet Elon Musk because he
Elon Musk.
seems properly mental. And I think that would be a very interesting discussion. And I would get a whole new comedy show out of it.
Okay, thank you. CJ would like to have one or two closing comments before I totally wind down this session.
Not at all. Thank you so much for having me here. And for the guys who are watching, thank you for tuning in. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, CJ. I have enjoyed reading your books. I would recommend it to all the viewers. Thank you, viewers, for joining in today. It was great fun, CJ. We had a lot of fun, but beyond the fun, we also had some interesting, serious discussions, which was very fascinating. Uh, for viewers, I have been doing this show from April. I'm going to take a break, as in season one is over, not just because CJ was here, but I had planned this. And what better way to end?
I love that. You're like, after this, I mean, I can't take this anymore. Like, that's it. Thanks a lot, Ninad.
But I probably is the best way to end season one with a session with CJ. Thank you, CJ, for joining us today. Thank you, viewers, for coming to 20 Minutes Live. Stay safe, stay well. Thank you. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you.